Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly shir here at Dress of Israel. The shir is Q&A with Rabbi Shalom Arush, but today, since our great teacher and mentor, Rabbi Shalom Arush, may Hashem bless him with prosperity, longevity, and success, is not in Israel. He's in a tour in France where he's strengthening people all over France, helping them become closer to Hashem and being closer to Emunah. So today, unfortunately, and I apologize for that, I am going to be subbing in for the rabbi. I'm going to be the substitute. And with the help of Hashem, we're going to be talking about something which is very crucial to all of us, something that maybe is easier for me to say when the rabbi is not sitting beside me, since I want to speak about the concept of a rabbi. We are now, the time that we're during the year, we have just now read two segments of the Torah, the segment of Behalotcha and the segment of Shlach, and we're going to be reading this coming week, the segment of Korach. All these three segments that we read in the Torah concentrate on one major point, something that is so fundamental in Yiddishkeit that we need to understand it. The end of Parashat Behalotcha tells us how Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe the Tzaddik, the great pious and righteous person who he led the people of Israel out of Egypt. He was the one who led them on the Exodus, leading them to receiving the Torah and into the land of Israel. Moshe Rabbeinu's sister, the prophet Miriam, and her brother Aaron, who was the high priest, were speaking about Moses. The Rambam, at the end of his book, Hilchot Tumat Sarat, the Rambam there explains that they were not speaking, they were not saying anything bad about Moshe Rabbeinu. What was the whole conversation? Miriam turned to Aaron and she said to her, I'd like to understand something. I don't get it. I'm a prophet. You're a prophet. Our brother Moses is also a prophet. How come he separated from his wife and he lives apart from her, and yet we live together with our husbands and with our wives? What is the difference between Moses and us? We're all prophets. The Rambam says that's all she said. What's the difference between us and our brother Moses? And the punishment was swift. The punishment was severe. The punishment was embarrassing. Torah tells us that Miriam was struck with leprosy. She became ill with leprosy, and everyone knew it. She was secluded away for 7 days, where all of the people of Israel knew that this happened to her because she spoke against her brother Moses. They all waited for her until she heals, and only when she healed did they continue on their travels in the desert of Sinai. Why such a harsh punishment to punish her simply for comparing Moses to herself? Let's continue. The next segment of the Torah tells us that Moshe Rabbeinu, wanted to send spies into the land of Israel. Spies that could assess the land, tell us whether it is a land that would be difficult to conquer or not, that could tell Moses and the people of Israel what are they facing. The spies came back, and even though they were asked by Moses only to give details and information, they also gave their own personal perspective on the chances of the people of Israel being able to defeat the dwellers of the land of Israel, and also about should they stay or shouldn't stay in their deserts. They disputed their rabbi and their leader, Moses, in front of all the people of Israel. And again, the punishment was harsh and swift. They were struck, as the Torah said, with a terrible disease and ailment that everyone saw. They were humiliated in front of the people of Israel, and all of the people of Israel, for crying, for listening to what the spies said against what Caleb and what Joshua said, and against what Moses said, all the people of Israel of that generation were punished to wander the desert of Sinai for 40 years and to perish in that desert, and only their offsprings, their children and grandchildren, will merit to enter the Holy Land of Israel. Again, such a swift punishment because the spies contradicted Moses. The spies started interpreting things differently from the way Moses told them to. And we reach this week's segment. This week's segment in the Torah tells us a story about Korach. Korach so our interpreters explained to us, was a great person. He was a great Torah sage. He was rich and wealthy. He was extremely clever, extremely well-versed in the Torah. He was one of the leaders of the people of Israel. Yet he decided to dispute Moses. And when we read what's going on, in a way you can say that maybe he has a claim. What did he say to Moses? We're all holy. We all receive the Torah. Why are you and your brother the leaders of the people of Israel, and yet we need to follow you? Let's have elections. Let's do something to see who is the person that should be anointed as the king, as the leader of the people of Israel. And again, for disputing Moses, the punishment was harsh and swift. Something that never happened before occurred in that time. The land split. They were all swallowed up, alive, them, their wives, their children, everything that they owned, their cattle, their oxen, every single thing. Again, swift and harsh punishment for disputing Moses. And the question is, why? What is going on here? What does Hashem want to teach us by these three segments of the Torah? The answer is, in order for us to understand this, to comprehend this, we need to understand the role of the Tzaddik in our lives. We all think, people that are not well versed in our sources, tend to think that all the Torah was given by Hashem, by God, to the people of Israel, that they heard everything. We have 613 commandments, and all the 613 commandments were given to us by Hashem. And that's absolutely not true. Our sources tell us that the people of Israel only heard 2 commandments from Hashem. The first 2 commandments that are given in the 10 commandments. I am Hashem, the Lord your God, and you shall not have another God in front of me. Our sources tell us that every single time the people of Israel heard the words of God, think about it, a finite creature, flesh and blood, hears the voice of the creator of all words, of all worlds, of the infinite of infinites. They all perished and died. That is what the verse says in the book of Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, Nafshi yatsa v'dabro, my soul left my body when I heard the words of Hashem. Twice the people of Israel all died, and they had to be revived by the angels, just like it will be in the future times where all the dead shall be resurrected. And the people of Israel came to Moses and they said to him, listen, we had enough. We're unable to do this. We can't hear and die. We're not coping with it. Please, you go, you listen to what Hashem has to say, and you tell us what are Hashem's commandments to us. That's why it says at the end of the Torah, in the segment of Vezot HaBracha, it says, Torah tziva lanu Moshe. Moses commanded us the Torah. It is brought there in the Midrash. Torah, the numerical value is 611. 611 commandments we did not hear from Hashem. We heard them from Moses. And Moses went in, he heard the words of Hashem, and Rashi brings at the end of the segment of Naso that no one else heard what was going on in the tent of the covenant. No one else heard except for Moses. Moses came out and he told the people of Israel, you have got to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The people of Israel never heard what Hashem said to him. They knew he went in and heard the words of Hashem, but they didn't know when he came out if he is saying to them something that he just now invented, heavens forbid, or those are the words of Hashem. And yet they believed in Moses. What we learn from all these sources is the Torah that we were given, 611 commandments compared to 2 that we heard from Hashem. 611 commandments, we did not hear them from Hashem. We heard them from the Tzaddik. We heard them from the righteous leader of the people of Israel. The amount of faith that the people of Israel had to have in Moses in order to believe everything that he says, in order to accept everything that he said to them as the word of Hashem, is immense. That was the most important thing the people of Israel needed to have, the faith in the Tzaddik. That's why 2 of the most important, if not the most important events that happened in Jewish history, they were formed not only to strengthen the faith in Hashem, but to strengthen the faith in Moses. When the Red Sea was torn apart, the Torah tells us that Hashem turned to Moses and says to him, The Torah tells us that the people of Israel, when they saw this, Vaya'aminu b'Hashem of Moshe Avdo. They believed in Hashem, the God, and in Moses, his servant. And when the 10 Commandments and the whole Torah was given to the people of Israel on Mount Sinai, Hashem turns to Moses and he says to him, V'gam b'cha ya'aminu le'olam. Part of this whole event is in order for the people of Israel to believe in you, Moses, for all times to come. Two of the most important events in the history of the people of Israel, one of their most important purposes was to strengthen the faith in the Tzaddik, in the belief that the people of Israel had in the righteous and pious leader that led them. Why? Just as we explained, because the Torah was given to the people of Israel by the Tzaddik. The Torah, the people of Israel did not hear it from Hashem. They heard it from the Tzaddik. They had to have immense emunah and faith in the Tzaddik that everything that he is telling them is true. That's why whenever anyone tried to undermine the faith in the Tzaddik, undermine his position, the reaction was extremely harsh and swift. When Miriam said to her brother Aaron that they are just like Moses, there's no difference between her and her brother Moses. She's trying to undermine Moses' position as the most elevated prophet in Jewish history. So her punishment is harsh and swift. She is struck with leprosy. She is enclosed for 7 days. The people of Israel know it. She's humiliated. She's embarrassed. All of that to explain to the people of Israel what happens when you speak about the tzaddik, about the leader. Again, the next segment, the spies. Instead of doing exactly what Moses told them and only to bring information, not interpretation, they violated his words. They went against his intention and his teaching. Again, the punishment was swift and immediate because, again, they're undermining the position of the righteous leader of the people of Israel. By undermining his position, people of Israel might start thinking, maybe all the Torah that we heard from the Tzaddik is wrong. Maybe all the 611 commandments that we heard are all invention. And it ends with a story of Korach. Korach tried to dispute the leadership of Moses. It is brought in our sources that not only that, he also tried to mock some of the teachings that Moses taught the people of Israel. Such disputeness, such impudence cannot go unanswered. And Hashem punishes it immediately and swiftly, creating something that's never been created before. The land opens its mouth, ruptures into two, swallows everything alive to teach the people of Israel. You do not speak about the tzaddik. You do not dispute the tzaddik, because everything that you have all derives from the tzaddik. Now, by this, we're also going to answer another question that many people tend to ask. Many people ask, why do I need a tzaddik in my life? Can't I talk to Hashem on my own? Doesn't Hashem hear me? I mean, our great teacher and mentor, Rabbi Arush Shlita, always speaks about this, that Hashem is your best friend. You can speak to him directly. So if I can speak to Hashem directly, and if I can say everything that I need to him, and I can get everything I need from him, why do I need a tzaddik in my life? The answer is, just like history, things happened in the previous times, that's how they continue to happen all over our present and will happen in our future. The Torah was not given to us by Hashem. We didn't hear it directly in our ears from Hashem. We only heard 2 commandments, and then we all died. We received the Torah from the tzaddik. The tzaddik is the middleman between us and Hashem. He is the one that funnels the words of Hashem and passes them on to us, and also, vice versa, takes our prayers and brings them up to Hashem. The tzaddik, he is the connection between us and between Hashem in order to help us to be able to receive his words. Just like we received the Torah in the times 3,300 years ago through the tzaddik, so too in every generation. Receiving the Torah in every generation, what was is what shall be, is through the tzaddik. We need the tzaddik to be the middleman for us between Hashem. We cannot receive the Torah without the tzaddik. And that's why we all need a tzaddik in our lives. And that's why when we dispute that, the punishment is very harsh and swift. Now, in the learnings of Rabbi Nachman of Breslev, of blessed memory, he speaks a lot about the concept of the Tzaddik. Rabbi Nachman of Breslev has the most incredible book in the world, the book Likutei Moharan. In the book, he speaks about every single thing that you can imagine. But he has one Torah, one chapter, one teaching, which is considered to be the fundamental teaching in the teachings of Rabbi Nachman, the fundamental teachings of the Breslever Hasidus. And this is Torah 123. And the words which Rabbi Nachman chooses to open this Torah emphasize to us how important and how fundamental this Torah is to our life. This is the foundation. And I'd like to read to you his words because this Torah speaks about our relationship with a tzaddik. And I'm going to start reading the words. The root and fundamental point upon which all else is dependent. I'm going to read it again because these are words that he only uses once in all of his books, only in this Torah, only in this teaching. In Hebrew, it's ha'ikar ve'hayesod she'hakol talui bo. Listen to the words in English. The root and fundamental point upon which all else is dependent. All else. This is the root. This is the fundamental point. What is it? Says Rabbi Nachman, is to bond oneself to the tzaddik of the generation. We need to have a connection with him. Accepting his assessment of all things. Every single thing that the tzaddik assesses, we need to accept it. Listen to these words. Whether minor or major. It's irrelevant whether it's something big or small. You need to accept the words of the tzaddik on everything, just like the people of Israel accepted everything that Moses said to them. Not diverging from anything he says, whether to the right or to the left, whether he says do this or do that. As our sages said, even if he tells you that the right is the left, even if the tzaddik says to you that what you think is right is really left, you need to listen to him. Do not diverge from what he says. And casting, and continues Rabbi Nachman and says, and casting aside all of one's own wisdom, irrelevant how clever you are, irrelevant how much you know. When you're talking about your relationship with a tzaddik, cast it away, just like the people of Israel cast away their wisdom when they heard the words of Moses. They didn't start thinking, 1 second, is this commandment? Can we live with it? Can we not live with it? Is it something that fits in with our lives' ideas, with our personal morality? They cast away all their wisdom. And continues Rabbi Nachman and says, putting aside one's own ideas as if one had no understanding at all, besides which one receives from the tzaddik and teacher of the generation. This is work. You need to cast aside all your wisdom. Stop thinking about your personal ideology, your personal morality, your personal perception of the world. Cast everything aside and accept only that which the tzaddik teaches you. And as long as one maintains some of one's own understanding, listen to these words Rabbi Nachman says, as long as one maintains some of one's own understanding, one has not yet reached the ideal and is not considered bound to the tzaddik. As long as you have some of your own wisdom left in you, when you use what I heard this from my sages and mentors, the most dangerous word in English or in Hebrew is in Hebrew, it's the word aval. In English, it's the word but. Yes, I listen to what he says, but I think that maybe the minute you said that word, but, finished. You're not bound to the tzaddik. You're not bound to him, says Rabbi Nachman. You still have your own wisdom. You still think you understand more than he does. You still think you perceive the matter in a better way. And Rabbi Nachman continues. And listen to this. And he now speaks about our history. Now, when the Israelites received the Torah, they were in possession of great wisdoms. At the time that the people of Israel left Egypt, they had great wisdoms. The land of Egypt was a land of immense wisdom and technology for those times, and many of them were passed on and learnt by the Israelites of that generation. We're not talking about an ignoramus people that left Egypt. We're talking about a very wise and clever people. And Rabbi Nachman continues, for the contemporary idolatry of that time, idolatry, in other words, worshipping other gods of that time was based upon mistaken but great wisdoms and philosophy. Worshipping other gods, worshipping other idols of that time, even though it was a mistake, it was very clever, based on many deep philosophies that affected the people of Israel. As known, had the Israelites, said Rabbi Nachman, had the Israelites not cast aside their wisdom, they would not have accepted the Torah. If they wouldn't have cast aside their wisdom completely, they would have had no ability to accept and receive the Torah. Why? For they would have been able to refute it all. And nothing that Moses did for them would have been of any avail. The minute they would have had some wisdom left, they would have started disputing, refuting the Torah, starting saying, maybe this is wrong, maybe this should be changed, maybe this doesn't apply to us. And the minute they start with those ideas, everything would have been ruined. And continues Rabbi Nachman, and he says, even all the signs and awesome wonders that he did before their eyes, opening the sea, striking the Egyptians with the 10 plagues, going up for 40 days and nights, not eating or drinking to receive the Torah, listening to the words of God when they all died, even those wonders would have not helped. Why? Even those great signs and awesome wonders that he did before their eyes would have been to no avail. Even today, there are heretics who foolishly and mistakenly deny on account of their own wisdom. It's something that applies even today. You can see a person who's dressed like a frum Jew. He may have his yarmulke and his beard and his side locks, and he may have his tzitzis coming out of his clothes, but yet he is a heretic because he does not accept what the Tzaddik of the generation says. He has constantly his questions and qualms and disputes and arguments, and is always saying, yes, but, yes, maybe, yes, I don't think so. That person, says Rabbi Nachman, is a heretic because his core is one that does not believe in the Tzaddik. Continues Rabbi Nachman and says, but the holy people of Israel, we're talking now about the generation when they received the Torah, saw the truth. They saw that Moses was the tzaddik of the generation and cast aside their wisdoms, believing in God and in his servant Moses. And on account of this, they accepted the Torah. Only because they cast aside all their wisdoms could they receive and accept the Torah. Continues Rabbi Nachman, and he says, this is the meaning of the Targum. The Targum is the Aramaic translation, which is a very holy translation given to us also from the Mount of Sinai, as it says in Tractate Megillah on the 3rd page. This is the meaning of the Targum on the verse, a people who were naval, which means foolish and unwise. This is what it says in the book of Deuteronomy in chapter 32, verse 6. Explains the Targum. What is the translation? What is naval? Naval normally means someone who's foolish or someone who's even wicked. How does the Targum explain it? A people who accepted the Torah without being clever. Naval is not being clever. What does that mean? Explains Rabbi Nachman. For the acceptance of the Torah was mainly because they were unwise. That is, by their casting aside all of their wisdoms. How did the people of Israel receive the Torah? Because they were a naval, because they cast aside their wisdom, and they reacted as if they are foolish, as if they are unwise. Only thus were they able to accept the Torah. Rabbi Nachman explains that this is the acronym of naval. He explains it why. But he explains to us the reason they received the Torah was because they cast aside their wisdom. They treated themselves as foolish people and accepted everything Moses said. Continues Rabbi Nachman and says, now, the essential service of God is simplicity, uprightness, fear of God, and abstination from evil without sophisticated wisdom. This is the core of being a God-fearing person. Stop thinking you know everything. Stop being a wise guy. Wise guys cannot be the servants of God. They've constantly got questions and arguments and things they don't understand. Continues Rabbi Nachman. After it was said of King Solomon, he became wiser than all men. This says it in the book of Kings 1, chapter 5, verse 11. Solomon himself, what did he say? He said, I am a bore among men and possess no human understanding. This is brought in the book of Proverbs in chapter 30, verse 2. Solomon, the wisest of all men, is saying, I know nothing. I cast away my wisdom because that's the only way to accept Torah. Similarly, Asaph, who was also a very, very wise man, what did Asaph say in a similar manner? Asaph said, I am a boar who does not know. I am like an animal before you. This is in the book of Psalms, chapter 73, verse 22. It is also written, there is no wisdom, understanding, or counsel before God. Brought in the book of Proverbs, chapter 21, verse 30. This is a key to understand. This is a key fundamental foundation for our religion, to be a God-fearing person. This is why Rabbi Nachman relates to this Torah, to this teaching, the root and fundamental point upon which all else is dependent. You must bond to the Tzaddik. You must accept everything that he says. And in order to do that, you must cast away your wisdom. Be a vessel to receive everything. Only thus can you really receive the Holy Torah and the words of God, which, as we saw, the words of God and the Holy Torah were given to us by the Tzaddik, by Moses. And every generation, they are given to us again by the Tzaddik of that generation. This is why we can see in these three segments of the Torah, such harsh and immediate punishments were brought upon those who disputed the position, the power, the uniqueness, the holiness of the Tzaddik. And this also applies to all of us. Do we want to receive the Torah? Of course we do. Do we want to be connected to God? Of course we do. Do we want to be people who are God-worshipping with faith, people with love, people who do what Hashem says? Of course we do. The key factor to do that is by connecting ourselves to the Tzaddik of the generation, because he teaches us the Torah just like Moses taught the Torah to the people of Israel. And every generation, this is how it works. You can only receive the Torah through the Tzaddik. But to do that, we need to cast away our wisdom. We need to be a naval, a person who's foolish, a person who has no understanding, a person who treats himself like an animal, a person who treats himself like someone who has no wisdom and knowledge of its own. And when we reach that level, only then will we be able to connect to the Tzaddik and accept everything the Tzaddik says. And only then will we really and truly be able to receive the Holy Torah in our generation. May Hashem help us all to find our Tzaddik, to connect and bond with him, to cast away all of our wisdoms, and thus to really and truly be connected to the Torah and be connected to Hashem. Until next week, I'd like to wish you a blessed week. May Hashem bless you with all the blessings written in the Torah, and may you have a week filled with strength and insights. And with the help of Hashem, next week we shall meet again with our great teacher and mentor, the Tzaddik, the righteous and pious leader, Rabbi Shalom Arush Shlita. Kol Tuv and Amen.